That right there is Ratliff Monuments. If you ever need a headstone carved, or a loved one, I mean. Violet Ratliff, never married, nevertheless bore 6 children: Earl, Kelly, Barb, Ron, young Earl, and Beauty. For each birth, she locked the doors of Ratliff Monuments for only 1 day, even with young Earl, when she was in labor for 36 hours. Well, that's what folks said, and I met her and I believed them. She had the unyielding disposition of a cliffside. None of Violet's children had any desire to go into monument making. Beauty thought it all was a bit ghoulish. There's some truth to that. Very little demand for monuments to the living, after all. The run of the shop fell at last to young Earl, the only Ratliff still at home when his mother finally passed at 82. And who then had the honor of engraving her headstone? He's done well, for the most part. The shop was damaged in a flood several years ago. The showcase, a mock cemetery out front, was mostly washed away. Stone monuments bobbing violently in the first torrents of the flood eventually sank and spread along the channel, bottom downriver. An elongated graveyard for no human loss. Visited by eyeless fish and adorned with indifferent wreaths of algae. An elongated graveyard for no human loss. That is interesting. There's such a grimness to it, that the idea of having an entire scattering of gravestones, but all of them are meaningless because none of them actually are tied to a death. But they are but they are like in a grave of their own at this point. If a few stray stones ended up at the bottom of Lake Leth too, we'll never know. Young Earl is the last of his short line, professionally. And there's nobody around qualified to carve his monument, so he's already claimed one of those at the bottom of the river for himself. Huh. An interesting note. Who's decided that one of the ones lost is actually his grave. It won't be at his grave though. The research center. Ezra taught us a card game. That was a pretty cool location. And now we're skipping it. If you beat Ezra at the card game, then you'll be better than Ezra. I think I've made that joke like 10 times now. It only even makes sense if you know that Better Than Ezra is a band. It's a thing that exists. Clara draws a card. 3 deep breaths, 8 white doves, 5 slow hours. Kate draws a card. 7 blue petals, 3 deep breaths, 8 white doves, 5 slow hours. Some kind of card mechanic I don't have context for. It occurs to me, I could be off the mark here, but I'm thinking about the timing of this. Like, I don't know exactly when episode 4 came out, but I could almost think like maybe episode 4 came out sometime around... I don't know the timeline. I'm just wondering if Night in the Woods came out over the course of the development of this particular episode, maybe. Because Night in the Woods has a really unusual structure where you play through this linear story and you make some choices and you talk to people and you kind of experience the city breathing and growing and changing and so on, and the main story plays out. But over the course of that, you keep making binary choices of who to hang out with. And as you do that, you develop the storyline with a particular character one way or the other, and it affects how you look at that character and so on. but you miss out on whatever is going on with the other character, whatever adventure is there, whatever like meaty amount of content is there. That's probably like an entire level and scenario that you don't even know is in the game unless you go to it, and so on. And I'm thinking of that, and I'm playing this chapter, and I'm like, this seems familiar. This definitely strikes me as a thing where I'm like, huh, what if these are related? What are we listening to? Oh, just this tape a friend of mine sent me. They live in the desert. Visinks? Something like that? Sounds good on the Mammoth PA. Yeah, that's the only way I listen to anything lately. Your turn, buddy. 9 gray feathers, 7 blue petals, 3 white doves, 8 deep breaths, 5 slow hours. Oh no. It was 738. Aw, you're beating at your own game. I'm just glad it didn't come to my turn again. You took a bullet there, my friend. It's a hard game. That's why I like it. And we're only, how many cards in now? 5 or something? I assume it'll go to 52? It goes until everyone forgets a card. That could go on a long time then. Well, not with this crowd, I guess. We're all too soggy-brained. I know I am. I even take homemade supplements for it. Shade-grown lichen boiled with the peel of lemon, then frozen and crushed with oak leaves. It's a scalp massage oil. You can smell it if you get too close. It dries out the brain a bit, which is helpful for a good memory, if I can remember to use it often enough in the right place. Oh, don't worry, the soggy brain has its benefits too. If your brain is soft and damp, new ideas can make a clear impression, like a boot in wet sand. But like wet sand, it can easily get muddied and washed away. So there's a trade-off, see? It's a shame we can't have it both ways, is it? What's this game called, Ezra? Forgetting Game. The irony of forgetting the name of that game, huh? Whoops. Kate likes to give her passengers the opportunity to make some floating around money, and that lab pays cash in small envelopes upon completion of their little gauntlet of non-invasive tests. It's a project for the university. I think they're studying... I don't remember. The mammoth also collects their trash. Mostly shredded paper, though Kate says once they left half a vending machine on the dock. But nobody seems too interested in the lab stop that night. They stayed aboard and played a card game. I read a book. Let me tell you about it. Everyone stayed aboard. Like, Conway didn't get accosted this time? The setting's in an office building. The building is drab, anonymous, dull, I think. It's not really described. The book focuses on the people who work there. The main characters both answer phones. They're co-workers, Mimi and Jen. Mimi is older than Jen, but they seem to be at the same point in their lives. They like their work. They have a playfully antagonistic relationship with their boss. Mimi and Jen, aren't those the people that work at the lab? I actually only read a little bit from the middle. Jen reminisces about a cat she'd lost track of. It's a sweet and uncomplicated passage. Human affection for animals is a good model for pure compassion. In my life's work as the Echo River's premier anecdotalist, I've always found that a carefully exerted moment is more powerful than any epic history. That's my excuse anyway for reading books from the inside out. So I stopped there. My eyelids were getting heavy. We were headed back to the lake, and a chance encounter with the Iron Pariah. So she, that book just predicted the future? Is them talking about their missing cat is something that happened in the future, because I was playing as Mimi and Jen reviewing really old tapes, and those tapes had Conway and Shannon on them. Meanwhile, the cat that we're predicting going missing is actually something happening right now, because the cat just got on the boat with us, apparently. At least in that timeline. Maybe that timeline didn't happen now, in this particular through line. I'm not sure. I'm confused in a few different ways. Because yeah, the cat kind of went unremarked upon by other people. But Mimi and Jen knew all about the cat. That's the Mushroom Island. You alright, game? Nah. I took a nap. This might be a nothing burger. Like the dogs. Hey! Just a quick one here. I'm going ashore to do some mushroom hunting. This little island is my favorite spot, so I figured we're already running late. What's one more unscheduled stop? I just need to find Will and get him up here to keep an eye on things, you know. I bet he's asleep. Could you run down and wake him up for me? Bunks are down in the lower level, right next to the map room. Thanks. So we still end up as Clara and Ezra. My response, I'm still wondering, like, why? Why the mammoth? It seems like it might be inopportune in some ways. Oh, hey kitty. Is that the same cat? Is the mammoth just about iconography and advertising, basically? Like, look, we're the mammoth people. Look at our mammoth. You want to get somewhere? You got things to do? You go find the mucky mammoth. The one with the big mammoth in the front. Recognizable. Or it's on the back, I guess. Did they use it as a counterweight? They're having a moment. One that we're not privy to. God, that water is so high. Is that the water? No, that's like a fog, I guess. Okay. Now, yeah, it's clearly fog now. It's just rising up here. I was like, oh God, it's right up against the wall. It can't be, right? How are we not in trouble here? Like, I think these are windows right here. The drains. So I think the idea is that if water gets over the deck, it'll drain out of these. So the water must be significantly lower. But for a moment there, it totally looked like that was the water level, and I was like, I'm not psyched about this. A recorded lecture plays from a tape machine next to Will's bunk. And even hinted that he had in mind a design for this device, a record in the diary and sundry observations. Why should personalities in another existence or sphere waste their time working a little triangular piece of wood over a board with a certain lettering in it? The whole business seems so childish to me. If we were all to make real progress in psychic investigation, we must do it with scientific apparatus. Again, for Edison, a technical solution to every problem. He goes on to suggest the parameters for the apparatus. And yes, a question in the back, James. Yes. This idea of personalities lingering after death does appear to be in conflict with Edison's theories about what he called life units, the subatomic entities that animate matter, animate matter, and then scatter it to other configurations when a person passes on. But given Edison's emphasis on memory and cognition, remember, we're talking about the inventor of the phonograph, and its colorful description of the swarm of interchangeable drone-like. Edison even uses the word proletarian. Life units animating the human mind. His theory naturally posits that any individual life unit possesses on its own some fragment of memory. So according to Edison, when life units recombine from, say, a soldier into, say, a flower, we may be able, using some apparatus, to coax out the flower memories of war. The tape stops. Will wakes up. Well, hello, small man. You caught me in my pre-dawn nap. I try to sleep in little nibbles when I can. It maximizes my time in the threshold states. What? Oh, you know, the half asleep, half awake, in between places. I played these old tape lectures during my little nibble naps to absorb the information more easily. It's pretty effective. I wish I could do everything half asleep. Can't say I learned very much just now, though. I may have been too busy dreaming. A vivid, narcotic fantasia aboard the... But those are always the quickest to dissipate. I'd better tell you about it now before the spell's broken. Will takes a deep breath, focusing on the task of recalling his dream. I was small, not a child. An animal, maybe. Jesus Christ, 7 missed calls. This gets exhausting. Sorry, I'm just a little... I keep getting distracted by my phone going off, but none of the calls are like... It's not like one person urgently trying to get a hold of me. I think it's political nonsense. They don't even leave messages. Just fucking constant. I was small, not a child, an animal maybe. I patrolled the corridors of a great iron ship, searching for scraps and mice, I think? And crying. Always, a weak, mournful mew. Other crewmen slumped in odd corners or lay drunk on the deck. The hull smelled of shame, defeat, and rot-gut corn whiskey. They dumped artillery into the water, tore their flags into the cloth scraps, and made handkerchiefs to bury their sobbing faces. They drifted on Lake Lethe, drinking the cold, black water and eating eyeless fish, raw. When they at last ran out of cooking fuel, seemed in their despair to forget even language after an interval of years. the ship crossed a threshold into absolute silence. Silence, except for my hopeless, whimpering cry. Anyway, that's all I remember. Lately, I never remember my dreams. It's probably for the best. The images of dreams are often wasted on the waking. Well, I've got a stew to start. You may want to hurry back above deck. I believe we're about to pass the bat sanctuary. It's quite a thing to see. Well, you're about to go on an island, weren't you? Unless that didn't happen this time. Kate came back from her mushroom hunting excursion with a small basket full of oddly covered caps and stems. No doubt delicious to a morsel. Of course, she intended to use many of them in her medicinal practice, to ease the pain, nausea, and anxiety of pregnant women. But I can usually rely on my charms to snare a bite or two. I have no preferences when it comes to mushrooms, by which I mean that I treat them all interchangeably. I prefer not to know their names or qualities before I cook them up and eat them. It's useless after all. They escape your erudition, as the fellas say. That's a good mushroom hunting island, I guess. It's plenty damp, and they've got the cypress trees there to grow on. Of course, they're not indigenous, the cypress trees, I mean. Everything down here seems to agree that everyone down here seems to agree that they were planted by some kind of a marker, or as some kind of marker or memorial. And most people will tell you they've got a distant relationship or acquaintance who helped dig a hole or water the seedling. But nobody remembers what it was all for, and nobody left a plaque or anything. It's a shame. Looks like it must have been a lot of work. Well, at least we have the trees. And the mushrooms. Shannon and her friend set out on a dinghy to deliver the package at the telephone exchange. And here is where we diverge. Because this will be, at least I think it is. Last time I specifically chose not to do this, but then I did anyway? Maybe we'll have like a different intro to the conversation. Because last time we did the, we made a stew. So that scene's probably skipped this time, but they both presumably end with us getting on the dinghy. Ah. No, yeah, that's another weird case for the decisions you get. So in that case, picking this choice just skips the soup scene, and there doesn't seem to be much of a trade-off. All right.
Damn, it's really dark down here. This is a detail I missed out on the first time around, is that if you turn off the light when the bats are around, there's some dialogue apparently in those moments. The thing is, I do care about the bats. Like, there was the warning, like, hey, turn off the light if they get too close or whatever, because of this disease that spreads or whatever, and you don't want, you don't want the pollen getting on them and stuff like that. I thought there'd be a more overt moment where they're actually, like, crowding us or swarming or something, but they were sparse the whole time, so I never really thought that, oh yeah, this is when I'm supposed to turn the light off. Damn, it's really dark down here. Are you still there? Sorry, just thinking. Yeah, it's a reflective kind of place, if you're that kind of person. Which I think you are. What are you thinking about? Weaver. Oh, yeah. You think she's down here somewhere? Yeah, I do actually. I was thinking about Lysette. I actually think she'd like it down here. She's always liked old things and empty places. I mean, places that are full of weird stuff, but they still feel empty. Like the Wax Museum. It's kind of tragic because this is this optional text is kind of our last interactions with Conway. Maybe ever, for all I know. I don't know if we'll find him again. It's obviously an episode 4 cliffhanger situation, losing the character you started as in the first place, where you don't necessarily know what to think about that. And this is what we've been to before. It's all fake except for the bats. Yep. That's the familiar stuff from before. Hello, strange umbrella and strange tree. Better hang on a minute. It feels like there's one kind of hovering right over me. They don't really hover though, do they? I mean, how could they? I guess a lightning bug will hover by beating its wings real fast, but maybe they can do that too. I used to watch lightning bugs in the evening, out at the edge of the woods. Lysette's kid, Charlie, he loved them. You know. He ended up going to college and studying astronomy. I like to think he got his love for stars from those nights watching bugs. Anyway, me and Charlie, sometimes we'd try to see one of them up close. You lay in the grass and you have to be totally still for a while, like one of those wax sculptures. Don't even breathe, like this. Oh, you can't see me. I was doing the watching lightning bugs in the grass face. Feels like we're talking on the phone or something. Hey, who were you talking to earlier when we met in the mine? You were on the phone with someone. I forgot about that. Just a friend. Alejandra. She has kids now, so we don't talk as much. I was just venting on the phone about my landlord situation. She was very patient, but I could tell she had no idea what I was talking about. Boy, the number of conversations I have like that. It's like, oh, God. You're only politely pretending to listen. I actually hate talking on the phone. That is also true. Yeah, I try not to use it. I like to see someone's hands when they talk. Most people never learn how to lie with their hands. So anything you see there, you can pretty much take for the truth. It's a weird segment. The only control I have is shining my flashlight around and turning the flashlight on and off. Because for this whole segment, Conway's driving. I'm not totally clear on how often you can stop and get new dialogue. I guess I'll just do it every now and then and see what happens. Or maybe it's once between each sign that you read? That would make sense. That would track. Yeah, he gets spirited away and we don't know what happens to him. Not yet. We haven't played episode 5. My last segment was full of dialogue that was missable. In this timeline, he's got that wreath over his shoulders. I mean, the lei. Because we went to that island. And I guess that's not true another time. I don't think that was true before, was it? This is the white nose syndrome. A lot of bats nearby. Weird that the audio fades away in the darkness. Maybe it's because they stop sees activity. But I mean, they're used to the dark. Lysette's sick. I mean, she's old. We're both old. Hell, you're the youngest person I know right now. Oh. And the kid. Maybe that dog by a people calendar. In dog years, though, I bet he has us all beat. I'm old too, sure. And I forget stuff all the time. Especially if I had a few. My brain is swimming. But I mean, Liz, it's all going away. She's losing words you'd never think you'd lose. Not just like the street she grew up on, but the names of colors and the types of furniture. Or I mean even the word furniture. She'd say, we've still got a few nice pieces in the, what's that called? What's that I call the shed, where we put the bigger pieces, the beds and couches. And I'd say, Liz, why don't you keep teasing me about that time I fell asleep in the furniture shed? When it's so damn comfortable in there. I tried to help her keep some dignity, you know? I do that now. Being like, what the fuck is that word? Admittedly, sometimes they're really obscure concepts. Not like it's some big hive-minded thing that I'm like, oh, look at me with my big words or anything. But it's like just moments of like, I'm not really saying like lamp or anything. Like, what's that word for that concept where this really specific thing happens? God, that did that? And then I say like 3 synonyms. Don't start making me afraid I'm losing my mind here. That's all I had to offer at the end. She was a sister in Nashville who'll take good care of her. Now that I'm not around the shop all the time, what was that old guy's name? Used to make deliveries for the shop. He smells like leather. Ira was always yelling at him, too drunk to work on the day he could have been in the right place at the right time. She means a lot to you. Are you worried about losing her? You know, it's inevitable at this age. People are going all the time. Friends, family, everyone. It's natural. I don't wish she'd live forever. I just that she keeps some dignity as she goes. I think that's the best we can wish for anyone we care about. Okay, I think the bats are cleared out. He's fixated on that, like the idea that there's someone that he deeply cares about and is important to his life and his story and everything. And they're essentially not going to keep up their end of the bargain in the mutual remembrance. And if your memories are only yours and the other people in those memories don't remember them, you maybe start to worry whether they were real in the first place. Or if these memories were entirely stories that you tell yourself. It's a bummer. I've been having some of those encounters as I get older. People that matter. Just kind of losing connection over time. Losing touch. It's not a good time. It doesn't matter if you hit the skull or the arrow. I hit the skull last time, hit the arrow this time. He doesn't get off. There's that part where they tease you by having the boat linger towards the stairs. But he doesn't get off either way.